Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today, starting with a new PS5 update that I think some of you are going to be interested in. Being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle, it says Sony is apparently staggering the rollout of a minor PS5 update that adds a new batch of animated backgrounds for the Welcome Hub. So it says here, those who received the update now have access to animated backgrounds for games like Days Gone Remastered, Ghost of Yotei, Ghost of Tsushima, Demon's Souls, God of War Ragnarok, and the Horizon games, among others. So I don't know if any of you have received this update already, but I thought it was worth going over because the animated backgrounds are one of the cooler things that I would say Sony added to the PS5 over time, and I think it's actually pretty cool that they're adding a bunch for some of their games. So let me know your thoughts on that. Moving on to the next topic, we have a pretty significant update when it comes to PS5 Pro PSSR support in a big game, that being Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is being reported by WCCF Tech. It says a new Assassin's Creed Shadows patch is now live on PC and consoles, introducing plenty of new features and improvements, including PSSR support on PlayStation 5 Pro. The introduction of support for the AI-powered upscaler that made its debut with the mid-gen refresh system last year is accompanied by the introduction of ray-traced specular in balanced mode, bringing this display mode's visual fidelity closer to PS5 Pro quality mode than performance mode. Those playing the game for the first time on PS5 Pro with the 1.0.2 patch will have PSSR enabled by default, but everyone else will have to enable it in the video tab of the pause menu. After the new Assassin's Creed Shadows patch went live, El Analista de Bits released a comparison video that highlights how PSSR adds some improvements to the image quality with better anti-aliasing. However, its implementation still isn't perfect, as there's a loss in sharpening and reflections, which has been seen in some other games as well. So this is something that I thought was worth covering because we did talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows and how it really seemed to be taking pretty much full advantage of the PS5 Pro, just easily one of the best looking games on the PS5 Pro. And the difference between the Pro version and the base PS5 version is quite staggering. But they did make it known that they weren't using PSSR. That was going to be coming later. Now we are seeing what this game looks like with PSSR implemented. And yeah, it made an already really great looking game running on PS5 Pro look even better. And so yeah, again, Assassin's Creed Shadows is easily one of the best examples of what a game that is truly optimized for the PS5 Pro and taking advantage of it, what it can actually do, what it can look like, and how it can perform. So good news overall. Moving on to the next topic here, we're talking about Marathon once again, and there are two things we have to cover. The first is Tom Henderson making it known that Marathon is releasing this year. So apparently he kind of revealed this on Twitter by saying he told the missus he'll be on a marathon grind later this year, and she's only gone and signed him up for the gym. And so somebody says, "Are you saying Marathon is releasing this year?" Tom replies by simply saying yes. Now, this is not too surprising. I think for some people it might be, because we're hearing that the alpha test is going to happen soon. But again, I did mention in yesterday's video that the alpha for Destiny occurred just 3 months prior to launch. So I think Marathon is going to be a summer release. I'm thinking August. That's my guess. But the second thing about Marathon is Bungie did confirm that the teaser trailer they put out for the Save the Date trailer for the gameplay reveal was actually not in engine, which is very interesting because I think a lot of people were under the impression that what we were seeing was in engine, but it's not. So we ultimately have no idea what this game is actually going to look like, you know, in engine and when we're playing it. So when we see that gameplay reveal for the first time, that's going to be our actual first in-engine look. So just kind of wanted to put that out there. But we're going to move on to the next topic here, which talks about Astrobot once again winning more awards, which I guess is kind of unsurprising at this point. Being reported by Push Square, it says 2024's Big Game of the Year winner Astrobot has added even more accolades to its locker with a further 5 awards at the BAFTA Games Awards, which happened yesterday, including the main Best Game Award. The Team Asobi Classic also won the Animation, Audio Achievement, Family, and Game Design categories. Sony also won the Multiplayer and Music categories by way of Helldivers 2, which picked up 2 BAFTAs after its huge success over the past 12 months. Another big winner of the night was the fantastic indie title Still Wakes the Deep, which won awards for performances in both a lead and supporting role and was also voted the best new IP, which is pretty cool to see. I heard good things about Still Wakes the Deep. But yeah, Helldivers 2 took home some big awards last night, best multiplayer, best music, but Astrobot was once again the big winner, taking home 5 BAFTAs and the big one, which is basically best game overall. So yeah, Sony just with their IPs once again cleaning house here. But we're going to move on to the next topic, which talks about the Switch 2. We have a couple of things here to go over. The first is the announcement that pre-orders for the Switch 2 are not only delayed in the United States, but now they're also going to be delayed in Canada due to the US tariffs. And this is something that has a lot of people, I would say, feeling, kind of stressed out in a way. If you were excited for the Switch 2, this pretty much indicates that a price increase is likely going to happen. And yeah, it is worth noting that today the tariffs officially went into effect. So yeah, safe to say that Nintendo's going to be announcing a price increase for the Nintendo Switch 2 very soon, and then they're going to open pre-orders. The question is, how much will the price increase? Right now, it's currently $450, $500 for the Mario Kart World Bundle. I'm thinking maybe a $100 increase. Could be less than that, could be more than that, but that's just my random guess that I'm throwing out there. But I'm assuming we're going to find out very soon now that they've went into effect. But continuing to talk about the Switch 2, it seems that Nintendo is in a bit of hot water right now. This is being reported by WCCF Tech. They say the Nintendo Switch 2 unveiling may have been largely positive, but there are a few things that didn't sit very well with some fans, such as the pricing of the hardware and some of the software. It doesn't help that the console pre-orders, scheduled to go live later today in most of the world, have been delayed in the United States and Canada due to the US tariff issue, making North American customers even more anxious about a further price increase. Now, Nintendo of America President Doug Bowser has shared a tone-deaf statement that has riled up fans even more. As reported by CBC Canada, he essentially told them to go buy the original Switch if they can't afford the new one. Quote, "As we look at the Nintendo Switch 2 and you think about the feature sets that I talked about, we believe that the pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and the gameplay experience overall. We recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Nintendo Switch 2 price point. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available, so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be a part of these characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in," end quote. Those with a long enough memory have instantly remembered Don Matrick's similar statement when the Xbox One was facing criticism because of the console's initial mandatory online connectivity. He famously said, quote, "We have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360, end quote. So yeah, this is something that's been making the rounds, and absolutely people are calling back to specifically what Don Matrick said about the Xbox One. Some people are even calling back to, what Sony did with the PS3, saying, people will get a second job, which I don't know if it gets any worse than that. But yeah, this is unfortunate. It seems like Nintendo is kind of taking that same approach here, where it's just like, hey, if you can't afford our new product, then just go buy our old product. I mean, look, I understand from, a business standpoint and just being like realistic about it. Like, yeah, that is something you can tell a customer, but it really does come off as kind of tone deaf. It does seem to, just rile people up. And if history is anything to go by, we know that this is definitely not the thing you're supposed to say, when you're faced with this type of criticism, but Nintendo's doing it anyway. So just figured I would cover that. But we have something else to go over here in regards to Nintendo, and it is the overall performance of the Switch 2. This comes from Genki Japan, where he says Digital Foundry say that Nintendo Switch 2 is roughly on PS4 level in performance comparable to third-party software, and that you can expect a PS4 level experience with games like FF7 Remake, Elden Ring, and Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch 2. Quote, "Broadly speaking, it's helpful to think of the Switch 2 as kind of like, roughly a PS4 level in terms of comparable titles, but it can do so much more in terms of storage, bespoke graphical features, possibly CPU is also faster," end quote. Now, when it comes to FF7 Remake, they say, quote, "The presentation is PS4 levels or thereabouts, so broadly speaking, quite comparable to PS4, if not actually a bit more of a favorable experience compared to PS4, end quote. And so they also say here, as a first generation ballpark, so to speak, PS4 is a very good comparison point, I think. So yeah, you know, Digital Foundry's weighing in here, and they're comparing the Switch 2's overall performance, and I'm assuming this is in docked mode, to a PS4. And look, I'm just going to give my opinion here. That to me is extremely underwhelming. I think if you're somebody who is going into the Switch 2 not planning on making it your main device that you play on, like all your third-party games, I think it's nice, right? You know, if you do decide to buy any of these games, you're going to have pretty good performance overall. I mean, the PS4 is still a great console, you know, at the end of the day, and the performance overall of that console's, you know, good, but it's definitely outdated, right? For me, I couldn't imagine, you know, buying something like a Switch 2 and expecting basically PS4 level performance for like major third-party titles if that was going to be my main way to play. That's just me personally. Maybe some people feel differently, but you know, I'm somebody who's playing on PS5 Pro, and I just can't imagine, you know, in 2025 playing a game like Elden Ring or Hogwarts Legacy and being like, well, the best we can do is, you know, like 1080p 30 frames or something. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, it's playable, don't get me wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but just knowing that there are other much better options at comparable price points. But that's the nature of the Switch 2, right? The one thing they can say about this is, hey, you can take these games on the go. Can't really do that if you buy a PS5 or an Xbox console, and that's true. That's its main advantage, and I would say the biggest justification for this. But I just wanted to throw this out here because people were wondering like how these third-party games were going to perform, how they were going to, you know, compare to, you know, these other consoles. And so Digital Foundry saying basically PS4. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.